Why is it that strangers on the internet will buy from you, hire you, or rave about you, while your closest friends barely acknowledge you? Hi guys, it's Amy, the girl of the future, and welcome back. I've been gone for a very long time, and I promise you, it's not because I didn't have any ideas. It was because I flew too close to the sun and burnt myself out severely. But here I am, back for you, in the flesh, or more so in the audio. And today we're going to be talking about a topic that a lot of people actually brought up to me. This is something that I've gotten through my entire career. Like, it's something that I've discussed with people throughout my entire career, with industry peers, with friends, everybody and their mother. Everybody's been talking about this. And that's, why do people not take my creative career seriously? Why do friends and family, why are they the worst clients you'll ever have sometimes? So yeah, today we're going to unpack that, and I'm going to give you some examples, and hopefully this will provide you with a more positive response, and we can kind of see how some of these things aren't done consciously. And people don't even realize that they're doing the things that they're doing. So yeah, let's get straight into it. First off, we're going to start with the familiarity bias. Friends see the old version of you. They're stuck on the cached memory. So to put it more lightly, for example, it's kind of like if somebody saw you do a hobby when you were 12 years old and they failed to acknowledge the fact that you are now a professional who earns money from the same said hobby. If you sold your first paintings for 200 Rand, they still think that's your price, even 7 years later. Because to them, nothing has changed. You haven't changed. In their minds, you are still the same person that you were at 12 years old, and probably in their minds, you are still the same person that probably has the same skills of your 12-year-old self. And I think it's important to just step back and realize that people unconsciously do that. As creatives, we are constantly aware of the fact that we are growing and changing, and that may make it a little bit easier for us to acknowledge when our peers have changed. However, I think I talk more so for the people that don't have this, is they don't really see the difference because they don't know how to spot the difference. They're not going to see the fact that you've learned how to blend colors better. They're probably not going to see that you know how to use kerning and leading correctly. They're probably not going to see the fact that you don't use Comic Sans as your font anymore because you've completely elevated yourself from the Microsoft Office network. Is it called a network? Sorry, suite, font suite, typography suite, whatever it's called. You know what I'm talking about, okay? You're not using the PowerPoint fonts. So I think in that case, you have to also kind of give those people grace because of the fact that they don't do your job, and therefore you will be misunderstood by them a little more than your peers will. I think for me, at least, as a creative, it's really easy for me to see the growth within my friends' work because I can see when, technical elements have been applied and when feedback has been applied. As creatives, we are always working with feedback, critique, and not every single industry that your friends and family are in may involve that, okay? Maybe their jobs are not involving a lot of change or a lot of feedback. And I think it's really important to note that sometimes people may hold you, in a very endearing space, and sometimes it may be to your detriment because they refuse to kind of separate you from their family and friend and not see you as the professional that you are. Now, to contrast, a stranger, on the other hand, is seeing the version of you of now. They see the polished version of you, the version of you that has the perfect caption, the version of you that's art style has been refined, the version of you that knows exactly how to use kerning and leading, as I said before. The stranger only sees what's in front of them. They don't know your past. Heck, they don't even know what your present is because they don't know you. And they definitely don't have an emotional tie to you, obviously, unless they become friends with you down the line. But their first glance of you is completely unbiased. They are not familiar with you. To them, you are merely just a person that draws, a person that creates art. And how they perceive that art is entirely obviously up to their own preferences. But it's less about you and more about your work. So I think, just to start off, the familiarity bias can be something that really, it gets to you sometimes. I mean, for me at least, it's about pivoting, for example, in my case, right? I've always been kind of known for design, known for drawing, known for art, illustration, etc., etc. But cooking was something that I always loved, and I am still building that right now. And especially now as somebody that is diving more into culinary and culinary consulting, 10 years ago, I wanted to be a chef. That was my main dream. When I was 13 years old, I wanted to be a chef. And I remember I went to like a chef holiday camp that my parents sent me on. It was like a little, thing where you like cooked like a whole bunch of meals and stuff. Very nice though. Very, very, I would really highly recommend anybody go on that just for fun. It's like, honestly, would do it again. But I just remember, like, the one problem that I had about being a chef was the fact that I had to clean up. Like, obviously, I had nothing wrong with cleaning a kitchen, but after everybody else in the class was done, there was just this pile of dishes, and I just remember crying. Okay, because everybody else in the class was slightly older than me. I don't know how I managed to get in, or how my parents managed to get me in that class. But everybody else was much older, and I just remember crying and just being like, I don't want to clean. And obviously, I kept on cooking. 10 years down the line, here I am talking about food. And I've somehow, weirdly enough, found myself in a full circle moment where I love food and I love cooking, and I'm now doing more so recipe development. But kind of just to put the point of, to my grandma, I'm still the little girl that loves baking cake. And those like Barney cupcakes, or like those Barbie cupcakes that you would get, like those mix ones that I think like Snowflake made. If you're South African, you'll know what I'm talking about. But they used to have the cupcake mixes with the sprinkles and stuff, and you would get like the little Barbie cupcake. Yeah, my grandma still sees me as that. Okay, she doesn't see me as somebody that is actively doing recipe development. Yes, I know I don't have a professional qualification, but with the way that I have been cooking, guys, I have been cooking up a storm. I have been learning so many lessons in and out of the kitchen. But it's just very interesting to see that even when I send my grandma pictures, she just like always says, I remember when you used to love cooking when you were smaller. And it's just about understanding that even at age 22, I stand and, the people in my life still see my cooking as kind of just a little thing that I'm interested in, and not as something that I'm entering into more so from a career standpoint and using to enrich my career. So I think that's a more endearing example. I know that I'm at least more so privileged in the fact that like my family is very supportive of my career, and that my parents and, a lot of my extended family do see my career as very serious, which is a really great thing. But sometimes there's also just like examples like that where sometimes you're still kind of seen as the person with the hobby, and that space is in your family's mind or friend's mind never leaves. So going on into friends and family as clients. This is a tense one, because whenever I talk about this, the main consensus is that friends and family can be the worst clients you've ever had, emphasis on family. Sometimes people expect freebies, sometimes they expect discounts, and sometimes, most of the time, they expect endless changes. And I think that's also like a very important thing, especially when it comes to designers, is that when it comes to reverts, you can be driven crazy with the amount of times you need to change something. Now, obviously, when people are paying you top dollar, you're more likely to be like, okay, it's fine, let me change this thing 10 times. You're paying me a lot of money, so I don't really care. I will change it because I'm getting, paid my money's worth, my time's worth, I guess. But when somebody is paying you 200 Rand to design a logo, and they still have the audacity to ask you to change that logo 20 times, and it's gonna grind your gears. I can understand that. I will not talk about, I don't know how to say this, but like, I have worked with family before on a design thing. It was very minor, and I don't hold any like thing against my family member, okay? Like, I don't hold anything against them. I wasn't getting paid. I did it out of the kindness of my heart, I guess. And I just remember like showing them like a few options and them not liking any of the options that I provided. Mind you, at this time I had won a design award. I kind of thought that I was like, okay, like Amy, you're doing the things. And still, even then, my work was not good enough. And yeah, just to branch off on that, it kind of feels like they'll never really understand how serious your job is. They don't respect the time, the process. It's kind of one of those, it'll just take you 5 minutes, okay? And it can kind of get awkward when you try to enforce boundaries, because they literally are your family or your friend. You do not want to hurt your family or friend. You don't want to really be in conflict with your family or friend, especially if you're somebody that doesn't like conflict. I, for one, am not afraid of conflict per se, but I'd rather much less likely want to get involved in conflict when it comes to friends and family. So it's kind of like a very awkward rock and a hard place position where you sit there and you're like, how do I tell them to politely let me do my job without sounding absolutely terrible. I think it's also important, however, to realize that these people do not know, how much effort goes into your job. And I think that's also another thing what we talked about with the familiarity bias. They still see this as your little hobby. Some families are, obviously more traditional. They aren't going to see careers within the arts or within creative spaces as serious as they would see a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant. And that's just kind of the way it is. Unless you're going to hold their hand and take them through the process and kind of show them, hey, like this takes me quite a while, or maybe give them a little bit of insight into your world, they're never going to know, and therefore they will remain unconscious of the way that they are treating you. Obviously, of course, some people are just full of crap, okay? That regardless of whether they are your friend or your family, some people are just full of crap and they happen to be your friend / family. And I mean, for example, another thing as well that I heard is that somebody can be an amazing friend, okay, an absolutely brilliant friend, but the moment that friend becomes a client, damn it, they are the worst, pickiest, critiquiest person you'll ever meet. And I mean, that's also a thing as well of being able to separate the friend from the client, and on their part, being able to separate the friend from the professional, the designer. So I think in that case it can be a little bit tricky, because it's kind of like when your friend kind of asks you for a quick logo and then you get like 10 rounds of feedback, or it's like if a cousin asked you for a cake as a favor and then they have the audacity to criticize your design after you've literally let them pay you 100 rand for the cake and your ingredients probably cost you more than that. Anyways, the point is that sometimes we don't realize how little people know about our jobs, and also on top of that as well, we have to be very strong about enforcing boundaries, because even though they are your friends and family, they should be able to take, critique just like you are taking from them. Now, of course, we can go to strangers. The contrast about strangers is that they pay their invoices most of the time. They respect contracts and they see you as a professional. Remember, because they only see your polished work, they are going to take you professionally, okay? They're not seeing you as okay, that's my friend, so therefore they're going to give me discount, or that's my family, so therefore they're going to give me discount. No, they see you as that is your rate. The rate that is on your website is your website. The rate that is on your website is your rate. It's not changing. It's not budging. And I think that's also where there's the question of, should you give your family tough love? Should you kind of say to them in the beginning, hey, I'd rather prefer for us to keep this very professional, and for you to kind of just be mindful of the fact that I'm doing this for you as a client and not as a favor, or as kind of just like a thing that I'm doing as a friend or as a family member. I think drawing a line in the sand is the only way you're going to get through to it. But if you do feel as if this person is not going to let it go and they're not going to take you seriously, it's just better to just hop off the job, okay? Disrespect can kind of also ruin a lot of things in this case. And I mean, I would rather save a family relationship than have it ruined because somebody cannot respect the boundary. Like, I'll just rather let it go. Like I don't want to be rude to you. I mean, I don't know if you don't want to be rude to me, but I'll rather just leave it, because it's not worth my time and energy when somebody is not willing to cooperate or see me for my worth. Because on the flip side, if I were to go to their job and be like, hey dude, can you go do this for me for like free? They'd be like, what the heck are you talking about? I am a professional. Well, the same thing goes for creatives. We are professionals as well. I don't know why that sounded so hectic at the end, but I promise you it's more so just in defense of the people that maybe have dealt with more worse experiences with family members. And I think, yeah, that's why strangers can be better. It's not to say that they are the best, because of course strangers can also be just as crappy and also expect you to do endless changes as well. I know, as somebody that has worked with clients before, and also clients from around the world. I mean, I've had a client who is definitely a stranger, who I definitely do not know, that has literally, paid me, obviously, the deposit for the rate, and then been like, my word, I don't like this. And then we're on the third revert, which is the final revert. And they're kind of like, yeah, no, I don't like it. We need to go for another round. And I think, like, in that case, once again, like I said, regardless of whether they're friends or family, anybody can be difficult with you. So I think it's just about keeping that in mind of, they don't know that much about your job. Spend time educating them. Take the time to tell them why you charge what you charge. I know you shouldn't really have to be educating people, okay? It's a lot to do that. But sometimes it can help you draw the line in the sand and be like, this is why I charge the rate that I charge. And this is why you need to respect that. And now let's just get into the ego and social dynamics. Sometimes when it comes to support, and okay, listen, I have a few takes on this. I just wanted to say the support that I have gotten from friends and family has been amazing, especially on this podcast with my illustration career. Throughout my career, I'll say it, if you're my friends and family, you're listening to this right now, I love you a lot. Even if you are not listening to this, I love you a lot. I have had the blessings of having a lot of amazing people around me that have, really lifted me up in a lot of ways. And I think it's also just important to realize that your growth sometimes shines a mirror back at people. Okay, they see what you're doing and they're thinking to themselves, why the heck am I not doing this thing? Why am I not working so hard? Why am I not achieving these things? Sometimes it is a moment of self-reflection. It is not jealousy. It can kind of just be this discomfort in being like, why am I not there? Why am I not showing up in the thing that I want to do? It may also be discomfort in role changes, okay? It's really difficult to sometimes see your friend as this professional thing that is devoid from any form of personality. And when I say devoid of any form of personality, I mean when you have to see your friend as a brand and not as your friend, it can be a little bit difficult to kind of make that switch, when you're dealing with them in a business context, or when you're dealing with them in more so a context where you have to purchase a product or service from them. And heck, some people may just quietly root for you, okay? They may not be your first client, but they are there. I have had friends and family talk to me or come up to me and tell me how proud of, me they are, and they haven't posted a single thing on social media because maybe they just aren't social media people. I think it's also very important in this day and age to not base social media support on the support you are receiving from people in your life. I know I've got a lot of people in my life that are not present on social media. They are not active on social media. That is something that they are not doing. And I don't feel hurt when they aren't resharing my story because maybe they aren't posting at all. Of course, sometimes you do have people that silently hate you from the sidelines, okay? I'm not saying that if you feel paranoid about somebody silently hating you, okay, please listen to your gut. But if you are just overthinking things, I think it's really just also important to consider that the people in your life may be supporting you the whole entire time. They're just probably not going to shout it from the rooftops, but they are there and they will make sure that you know that. And yeah, I think just to end of that segment, sometimes it's, once again, very difficult for people to see you as a product or a service or a brand. They've always known you in a more emotional context, so it's very difficult for them to take you more so seriously in a business context. And also, once again, your growth may be something that makes them think, what are they not doing? And it's kind of like if you were to launch a pop-up, strangers would line up. They'd be the first ones there because, of course, they're intrigued. But maybe friends are the people that maybe show up after everybody's gone because the support is still there even if it's silent. So let's get into why strangers say yes. Strangers don't have baggage. They only see the value of right now. They only care about the now. And I know we talked about in the previous segment, they don't know your past. They don't even know your present. They are just people seeing you for who you are, and therefore, the value that you project right now is the value that they perceive. They have no context. There is no old you. There is nothing to compare against. I think a really good example of that would be if you were, kind of selling on, Etsy or Instagram or wherever. The person buying from you does not care if you are self-taught. They don't care whether you took one class in 2015. They don't care about the fact that you don't have a certificate. They feel that your product is worth it, and therefore they feel the need to invest. And that is all they care about, okay? A TikTok viewer clicks follow because they like the work, not because they knew you in school. People feel a kinship to others when they know them, and they feel a duty sometimes to, connect with that person. But when it comes to somebody that doesn't know you, they've got nothing to lose, okay? Following you is not going to change their world in any way. It's not going to do anything besides the fact that they like what you do. So for them, it's a simple thing to do. Whereas with maybe friends and family, it's not that simple. It's maybe something that they have to consider a little bit more. So I think it's also important to know that the stranger is also a person that you don't know anything about. You don't know each other, and therefore the channel between the two of you becomes easier to bridge. And there's also the thing of the social proof loop. So sometimes friends can jump on board after strangers validate you. So this is kind of like if you get featured in a magazine, suddenly everybody is sharing the article. It's like if you were to get a lot of really good testimonials about being the best consultant that there is in business. If you get a lot of testimonials, maybe your family will be more interested in coming to you for advice. Maybe they did want to come to you for advice before, but perhaps they felt intimidated by dealing with you in a more professional context, and maybe just seeing other people validate your growth. That was like the final push for them to be like, okay, maybe it's time. Maybe it's time for me to actually take Amy's advice and sit down with her and pay the rate. I think that's also something of, it's not betrayal. Your family and friends are probably not trying to betray you. It's more so a thing of people like to back what's already credible. So they in turn are treating you as well, like, a product or service that they would search on Google. And that goes back to the thing of your family will continue to maybe see you as a hobbyist until the credibility comes by and proves otherwise. So, for example, if I were to start cooking and winning awards, my family would probably be more likely to buy food from me, considering the fact that like maybe 500 other people have endorsed my food or endorsed my skills. So I think that's also really important to know, is that social proof is a really big thing, especially with friends and family, because to them maybe they don't know whether you're taking it seriously, or maybe to them it's more so maybe you're not taking it seriously. But once the awards start rolling in, or once they start seeing other people cottoning onto it, they feel like they can do that. There was one story that I remember where somebody said that their family didn't want to buy art from them, or at least kind of thought as like okay, so-and-so loves painting. That's nice. That's cute, eh? You must paint me something nice. Like when people are like, just paint me something nice. But they weren't obviously willing to pay the price. And then when that person got into galleries and started getting featured, then their family actually started seeing them as a professional artist and started referring to that person as, my relative, they're a professional artist. But it took everybody else seeing them for their work, for their family to be like, oh, shoot. Okay, this person is actually doing the things. They're not just painting for fun. They aren't just painting something for their mom's bedroom wall. They're actually doing things. And it is something to be cognizant of when it comes to friends and family. And I think it's also just like a cultural and generational thing as well. Because like in some cultures, success needs external validation before it's seen as real. So, like, for example, I know for a fact in, like, a lot of Asian families, there's kind of this thing of wanting to be the best or wanting to always strive for more, which, once again, nothing wrong with that. But, of course, it puts a lot of pressure sometimes on you to be the best. I know for me, at least, once again, very blessed to have parents that were very supportive of my career and always gave me validation, regardless of whether I was winning awards or not. But I know that some friends and even family of mine, it is very important of them to achieve and to always show up. And maybe as a creative, their career wasn't seen as something that was important because they were not earning the big bucks of a doctor, or they didn't have a doctorate, or they didn't have this big degree, or they weren't doing a master's, So I think it's just sometimes very cultural, but also generational. So older relatives may not see design or creative work as real jobs. It's kind of like that old thing, like how people are like, when will you get a proper career? When are you going to start doing something proper? That can also be very hurtful because, I haven't experienced it myself. I think my parents always knew I was going to be a creative and I was always going to go into something creative. But I have heard from friends of parents asking them, is this a phase? Is this just you wanting to draw the whole day? Why are you going to school for something that's not going to help you pay the bills? Why do you want to be an artist? Artists are broke. Artists are poor. And the whole starving artist stereotype, very stupid, I believe. But it's that thing of people are asking you when you're going to get a proper career when strangers are literally paying you to create art or to create designs or to give them advice on their own businesses. And I think that's also just a thing of now with times changing, the definition of what a real career is, it cannot be defined. Everything is a real career. Being a social media influencer is a real career. If I were to have this monetized, this would form a part of my career. And if I were to do this full time, I would be known as a podcaster and that would be my career. And I think in that case, going back to just kind of the whole cultural and generational part of it, yes, sometimes you cannot change the traditions that others have, and unfortunately, that's just them. That's just how they're going to be. But the comfort in that is realizing that there are so many other people that are going to take you seriously. If you are listening to this right now and you feel like you don't have a proper career, I want you to know that you do have a proper career, and I believe in you. And if I believe in you, then I'm pretty damn sure there are a lot of other people that do as well. Because if you are getting sales, or if you're not even getting sales, but if you're getting support from strangers or from people that maybe are also friends or family of you, you are having a proper career. You are on the right path. And no amount of awards, no amount of degrees, no amount of likes, no amount of money that you're going to get is ever going to take away from the fact that your career was real even on day zero. It was there. It was real from day one. And I think that's a very important thing for a lot of young creatives to know, and something I always want them to remember, is that the art of practicing something makes you that thing. So if you are practicing the art of design, you are a designer. You are never going to be ready to be the perfect designer, the perfect artist, the perfect chef. You are already the perfect designer, the perfect artist, or the perfect chef by just trying, by showing up every day and doing. So yeah, sorry, I used very specific examples, but I think for any career, this applies. So just to reframe the frustration, I think the main takeaway from all of this is that it's not a personal rejection. I saw this quote about if you're not willing to love people unconditionally, then how can you expect the same unconditional love from them? Now, in today's society, we have kind of the put yourself first culture, which is where you put yourself first, you protect your peace, you are very much about keeping the balance of you. However, with this culture comes hyper-individualism, and that is not a good thing because community is needed in order to thrive in society. I don't care what anybody says. This is coming from somebody who is an only child, okay? I know what it's like to be alone. I wouldn't say lonely. I actually love being an only child. But the point is, you still need community. Okay, no matter how amazing your interpersonal world is, you still need community to be alive, thriving. And since the dawn of time, humans have relied on each other. Heck, even animals do. So what does that tell you? Anyways, the point that I'm getting to is that sometimes we don't realize that just because somebody doesn't agree or doesn't show up in one place, it doesn't mean that they aren't showing up in another. Sometimes, like it has been mentioned before, a friend or family just doesn't understand what your career is about. And maybe unintentionally it makes it seem like they don't really care, or that they are not supporting your career, or that they think your career is crap. But have you maybe thought of educating them? Have you maybe thought of taking them through a day in your life? That is like me trying my best to be supportive of a cousin that is a police officer when I don't know the first thing about what he or she would do in their job. Okay, what do? Do they punch in? Do they get their gun? Do they fill out paperwork? I don't know. You know why I don't know? Because I haven't been told anything about their job and I haven't even bothered to ask. And I also think it's just really important to realize that sometimes the people in your life don't understand your career, and that is okay. It's not always from a place of malice. It's not always from a place of them trying to undermine you. Sometimes it's just because it's not something that they know about. It's not a topic that they know about. If you have a friend that is maybe involved in STEM, maybe to them the creative career is something that confuses them. Or maybe art to them is just something pretty to look at, and maybe they don't understand the nuance behind it. It takes two to cross a bridge. So, sometimes you've got to meet people halfway. I think it's also about realizing that friends and family may never be your best clients, and that's okay. Because strangers are the market that actually scales at the best of times. Strangers are sometimes the people that are going to invest more money, and perhaps it's not because they see the person behind you, but it's because they see the idea, the product, the service, whatever you are selling. They are seeing it for what it is without, going back into your personal story. Of course, some people can fall in love with the personality of a person or the story behind a person or the ethos behind a person. But most of the time, they're buying into the product or the service. And if your friends don't buy from you, it doesn't mean you're failing. It just means that maybe they're not the target audience, okay? If I have a friend that is into really goth art or into art that is a little bit more grotesque, and I draw really cutesy art, I cannot expect that friend to buy from me, because it's the same as if they wouldn't buy from a stranger that made cutesy art. It's probably the same thing. So I think it's also about tolerance and about understanding the other person's side of the story. Put yourself in their shoes and think to yourself, if I was XYZ friend or family member, would I actually buy from me? Okay, am I the person that they are looking for? Are they my target audience? And now we're gonna end off this episode by getting into some key points. And I feel like if you have listened to this whole episode, well done. But here's just some things that I want you to really leave with, which is friends and family can sometimes be the worst clients. But it's also important to realize that sometimes it comes from a place of ignorance and not from a place of maliciousness. Another thing is that strangers don't see the past version of you, they only see the version of you that is now. And that social proof can flip the script for you later down the line, and that your family can believe in you. I think the final one that I'd like to say is that your brand doesn't live or die by your inner circle. It lives in the strangers who choose you without obligation. But at the same time, sometimes it takes a little bit of education for your inner circle to understand what you're doing, or to see the merit in what you're doing, without you needing to show them through awards or features. So yeah, that's the episode. I'm Amy, you know me, or you don't. This may be your first time listening to me. I hope you liked it. And yeah, catch me for the next episode, because I will be here. And I won't abandon you again, I promise. So yeah, guys, that's me. See you next week. And I think I'm gonna vary my episodes a little bit and kind of just think about what I can do. So maybe some topical ones like this, but then some fun ones. I'm still figuring it out, There's a lot of ideas to go through. So yeah, have a lovely day. Goodbye.